Yo, everybody, how are you? 41 Jake here. It's been a fun Friday. I hope you're having a good day so far. We're almost to an amazing summer coming up, right? It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let's turn this music off. With coronavirus and the ability to go to the pool, you know what? If that doesn't happen, that's going to really mess things up. I don't have a pool yet in my house. That's a dream I've had for years, but I don't know when that'll actually happen. But definitely, I need the public ones to open up so I can take my kids and get away from the house. So, wherever you are, I hope you're safe and you're doing well. Today, the topic I want to cover, and it's something that I think most of us have been through, and I'm going to kind of cover it from a couple different angles, more from the advisor and participant's viewpoint of what a blackout period is. Okay, so you probably heard that term. If you're an advisor, you obviously know what it means, hopefully. If you've been an advisor for a long time, you've been through a lot and probably seen some changes over the years. But a blackout period is simply when you transition your 401k from one provider, and I'm going to talk specifically about the record keeper, to another record keeper. Now, the record keeper, again, is where you log in, where you see your account, where you make your trades, where you get your statements from. Really, when you think 401k, you think record keeper. The crazy part is the record keeper really, they have a complex job, but they're not dealing so much with the plan design and all the administrative year-end testing that has to go on. That's a TPA. And when you go through a blackout period, that really has nothing to do with the TPA in most cases. It can, though, obviously, if you're going through a transition and you're not keeping the same TPA. So from a participant's viewpoint, the really only shift for you is you're going to have a new login. You're going to have a new username and password on a new website. So what are some reasons why someone would actually make this change? Why would someone in a business, in HR, CFO, CEO, business owner, want to go through a change like this? Well, there's many reasons to make a change. A lot of times your 401k will grow to a size where now you can get better pricing. And sometimes the only way to get the best pricing is to go to bid and look at other options out there. So you could keep the same advisor and the same TPA and simply shop out your record keeper, which is very common. And knowing where you're switching could really just a lot of times happens based on the service model. So maybe you're not getting the phone calls answered fast enough. Maybe your integration with your payroll hasn't been great. Maybe you want a different fund lineup and the product you're on with the current record keeper is limiting who you can choose from because they get paid from some of the funds possibly. So there is a variety of different levels of record keepers. And I would say you kind of start, there's the baseline, really, really low cost options like your guidelines. Your Vestwell is a little bit different. Forsall, Human Interest, some of those that are kind of very high tech focused, keeping costs down. America's Best is another one. There's a bunch of them out there. Inside of those, it's important to realize that you can still have different mutual funds and different investments. But some of the bigger top tier names, I would say, would be Voya. Census Vanguard has kind of definitely moved up the ranks. They used to kind of be down lower level. And their service is awesome. I will personally attest to that. Like, they are really doing great as far as the team they put in place to service plans. They're awesome. Mass Mutual is another one I've seen. Hancock's been around a long time. Fidelity, obviously. Who else? Empower. So you've got some names that you've probably heard of. They put a lot of money in marketing. You know, if you live out in Denver, if you go see the Broncos, it's Empower Stadium now. So the big names got the big money, and they do a lot more branding. So what's interesting is even if you go with a no-name record keeper, you could still have very great, well-known mutual funds. So you could still use Fidelity, Vanguard, American Funds, whoever. It doesn't necessarily limit you. Sometimes it does. It just depends. So there are a lot of variety of reasons why a record keeper switch would happen. But when you keep the same administrator, the disruption really isn't as dramatic as if you blow the whole thing up and switch everything. So if you are in HR or a business owner, you're listening to this, know that changing and going through a blackout period is something that sounds daunting and sounds like a lot of work, but it's honestly not on your part. It's more communication and helping participants or employees know what's happening. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what a blackout period is. So when you transition a 401k from one place to another, every single day there's transactions happening, right? There's money going in, there's trades being placed, people are changing their allocations, there's dividends, there's just so much that's going on a daily basis, and that's what the record keeper is tracking or record keeping. and they're looking at what's Roth, what's traditional. So they're looking at it from a tax standpoint, from the IRS view, and also from tracking what your performance numbers are and where your balance is. And so there is a lot going on. So the blackout period, you have to have, this is the most important part, is getting out those notices. So it has to be 30-day notice. If you're going to say, look, we're going to move from this record keeper, say we're at Fidelity and we're going to go to Vanguard, two big names, and you're going to switch. Fidelity is usually an asset-based fee. Vanguard's a flat per head fee. That could be the reason. That's one reason we've used. You're going to say, in 30 days, this will be moved. So you've got to go based on the date of the current record keeper saying they will send the wire or the money over. So initially, you're going to have to send a letter from the employer's going to send a letter saying, hey, we're going to switch to Vanguard or wherever, and we need to know what date you can do that. It's typically out 1.5 to 2 months, possibly. And then all the employees have to receive what's called the blackout notice 30 days prior to the date of the transition, usually about a week before the actual liquidation date. You will not be able to log into your old account. Now, why would that be? Why would they stop you from logging in? It's pretty simple, really. They don't want new money going in and out. They need to total up everything and stop having transactions for at least about a week, because most trades are trade day plus one the next day. Some go out, I don't know, it depends on your plan, but most of them would be trade plus one, where they would settle. So any transactions that an employee went in and said, I want to go from here to here and I'm going to change from equities to bonds, and then they make a trade, they can't have those happening because they need to total everything up and send basically one giant wire. This is the most common way it's done. They would total up everything and then they send it to the new record keeper. Now the new record keeper may do two things. This is what I see most common. I hope that technology improves this, because it is a little bit of a tough thing to do, especially during a volatile time like we have now in the markets. You're going to want to either map the current funds to the new funds. So if you're changing some of the funds around, let's say you're the Fidelity S&P 500, you're going to map that to the Vanguard S&P 500 or whatever fund that is equal, the same asset allocation. That's common. Mapping's great because the participants don't really have to change much once they get in. The other way is during the blackout period, you would have the employees log into the new system, pick the new allocation, so that the old record keeper would send a wire over, and then they would just drop the money into the funds that employee chose on the new platform. So I like that way in some cases, because if you can get down and actually talk to and meet with everybody and explain the funds and help them really take a chance to reassess where they are currently in their life, and maybe they haven't looked at their 401k in a long time, this is a good time to review it. And I've seen some people make some good changes there, and that's been beneficial for them. So once that is done, the wire's sent, there's a huge file that's sent that says, hey, this is employee A, B, C, D, all their names and exactly which account balance they had in each, both traditional and Roth, right? You've got to treat those two differently. And then they allocate the funds according to that, so that you know where that money was, or the grand total from the company. So that's what's going on. They do block out 30 days. So notice 30 days after that, they haven't to get it done. Most times it happens in a week and a half, average I've seen. I've got a few plans in blackout right now, one going in next week. It's a really important time to communicate. So one of the things that I've seen that's been beneficial, other than just emailing out the blackout notice and saying, hey, we're switching our 401k, and everyone ignores it, is to do meetings before and after. Now, pre-coronavirus, we would go and do those in person. Now we do those kind of remote, and we've built out actual landing page websites with videos on very specific details of how to get in, how to make changes, how to change your allocation, how to change how much goes into your 401k, and really detailed so that wherever they are, they can just pull up the video on their phone and watch it with their advisor, spouse, whoever. I don't care. So a blackout period, once it's done, so once everything is put in its place in the new record keeper, the blackout period ends, and we send an email and a notice, hey, where everybody's out, let's make sure that everyone can log in. Now that you've had a chance to look at the system, where can we help you understand your 401k better? And there's a lot more communication. So it really ramps up a lot of communication, then kind of a 1 week where we're just waiting, and then we do more communication now that everybody can get in. So Blackout periods are interesting. They can be a good time, and they can be a really bad experience if you screw them up and you don't communicate well. I've had one plan where we moved, and it was a really old platform. They didn't even have really a necessary login to see their accounts. It was kind of done on through paper still. Those are still out there, believe me. It blows my mind. There's still 401ks that are done on paper. You'll find them. But once we transitioned, I tried to reach out to every single person on the plan individually to make sure they were all aware, because they were not used to this new method of doing their 401k. And I couldn't get a hold of one of the participants. And so the day of the blackout transition, so the actual wire leaving their old account, they got a notice. Somehow they got that in the mail or something. So mail worked. I don't usually mail people blackout notices, but I email them, text them, call them, all these other ways that we normally would communicate. Well, I got an angry call from the employee's wife, who was like, "Where's my money? Where did all of it go?" And so she was pretty mad. So really, really, I can't emphasize enough the effort you have to put in before, through, and after a blackout period as an advisor. And as an employee, you should expect that. As a CFO, HR, you should expect that. You need to know, number one, what's the transition communication plan? Call it whatever you want, but that has to be really, really focused on, because behind the scenes, the company really doesn't have to do much. You're going to have to teach your payroll team how to upload a new file or connect those dots, but communication is the most important part during a blackout period. One last thing I want to add about that, though. There is an interesting aspect of blackout periods where if you have employees in a self-directed brokerage account. Now, most of those are done through Charles Schwab or TD Ameritrade. Most of the big names have connections into those. Obviously, Fidelity would have their own, and if you have a 401k, one of those that has a self retail side, then you could do it there. But most record keepers in the 401k industry have those two connections, or a way to do two of them. That is a unique way for people, if you have employees that are really, really worried, say, if I'm out of the market for a week, I'm going to die. It'll be the end of the world for me. You could use a self-directed option. Now, know your fiduciary responsibilities there. Know what your plan document says. Know what the trustees say about that. It's not something to take lightly. However, it could be an important factor to consider to keep the right people within the company happy and I guess content with how you're making this change happen, and not have any negative impacts. Because if they start to spread their anger and frustration about this whole transition, it could be a bigger problem than you'd ever imagine, because they probably have more influence on the employees than you're going to have as the advisor, and sometimes HR. So think that through. Self-directed, don't be so scared of self-directed. I don't know why that's such a taboo thing still. Most plans that we have it added on, there's a handful of people, and those people do know what they're doing. So yeah, that's blackout periods. It's always good to go through a change, because you find certain things. It's a great time to kind of contact all those old employees that still have account balances there that you're maybe paying for on the admin side. But don't be afraid of the scary blackout idea. It's something I hope that gets streamlined into someone in Silicon Valley, or someone needs to figure out how to like streamline that into like just click a button. Hey, let's black this, let's switch this plan around. But for now, it's still pretty tedious manual process behind the scenes for the new record keeper. But if you have more questions or have other thoughts to add to this, please put comments below. If you're listening to the podcast, leave a comment, or you can reach me. Just email me, jake@41jake.com, or text me 385-204-4015. Love to hear from you. Or reach out another way. I'm all over social media, so I'm sure you can find me. But have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck out